Alright, so this is the start of the daily squat experiment, and it's actually going to be about 26 consecutive days. I'm considering just taking 2 days off, before the meet, but in the spirit of doing the daily squat, I'll probably be going heavy up until that Wednesday, then take Thursday and Friday off for the competition. And again, the main reason I'm doing this is because I just want to get the raw squat up to a certain level in a very short amount of time, because I'm not planning on doing raw exclusively, of course, because the next meets, or the majority of the meets I'm doing for the year, are for equipped. So I'm also contemplating doing the daily raw squat up to Raw Nationals in October, because up until that point I would be doing training. I'll be doing training exclusively in knee wraps every week. So up to that point, I'm guessing, the majority of, or the entirety of September, and up until the competition, which I believe is on October 16th for the 66 kilo lifters, that I'll be doing the daily raw squats again, just to get the raw squats up to par, and try to hit a PR, of course, and that's the case for every single competition I do. But for this upcoming competition, I mainly want to hit the qualifying total. My best raw total is actually 530 kilos, but the qualifying totals were raised, I believe, from the 480 range to 517.5, so I can't really afford to miss too many lifts in order to get that on the dot. And what I'm experimenting with is, doing the raw squat daily max, and then going down and doing some type of low volume with the pause squats, because I think a major flaw in my squat, just across even raw and equipped, is that I cannot maintain a really good back position, because I can play that on my long torso, but again, that is something I should be able to control a little better even after all these years of lifting. But I am running some pause squats again, just to get my body really familiar with try to keep a really good position in the bottom, and try to keep the back straight. But again, if you're doing maximal lifts, then there will be some type of breakdown in form, and that is the case if you're truly doing a maximum lift. And there is some sacrifice, so naturally you'll have a really good position with light weights, and the light weights are what you're going to be practicing with, because you're not going to be, or I myself, I'm not going to be practicing, grinding 1 rep max lifts during training. And again, this is actually a departure of what I would normally do, because I normally emphasize doing some kind of volume as opposed to heavier single sets, with the exception of course, with the deadlift. So this is actually the first time I'm running any type of daily raw squat, so it's something that was always in the back of my mind, because I have read articles on Ivan Abadjev, and granted, his lifters are all drugged up to the max and whatnot, but I might as well have taken a shot at it, especially because I've been out of the raw lifting for so long, because the last full power raw meet I did was back in January of 2016. So doing a raw meet now, and again, this was primarily spurred by the fact that Raw Nationals is in a very good location this year. It's not going to be in Bumblefuck, USA. It's actually going to be within reasonable driving distance from the Chicago airports. There's 2 main airports that service the Chicago area, which are O'Hare and Midway. And I'm actually going to be flying through Midway for Nationals in May, Open Nationals in May, because I have to use a flight credit. But for the Raw Nationals in October, I'll probably be flying through O'Hare from whichever Washington, D.C. airport is servicing that particular time. So along with the daily raw squats and again pause squats, I am doing the normal deadlifts or doing what I can. So the idea is I'm doing a raw squat up to whichever daily raw max, and then I'll drop it down for some light volume or for relatively low volume for the pause sets. So again, it feels good to have somewhat heavy weight on the back for the pause sets because it can make me very psychologically or also physiologically comfortable with having that kind of weight in that kind of a precarious position in the hole. So that's the reason I'm doing it. However, if I'm doing a deadlift that day, I will not be doing any pause squats naturally because, well, number one, the session is going to take forever, but number two, I don't want to gas myself too much for the deadlifts. So on those days where I'm doing squat and bench only, I'll have an extended session for squats, and if I'm doing a deadlift, then I'll only work up to daily raw max, skip the pause squats, and then naturally do the deadlifts. Then afterwards, just do some quick sets of bench because if you're doing all 3 lifts all in one day, or one session, it's going to take forever. So, naturally, or I, ideally don't want to spend more than 3 hours at the gym every day. So, if a training session ranges from 2.5 to 3 hours, it's fine. And again, that's inclusive of all, you're changing your clothes and whatnot, taking breaks. So in actuality, how much lifting you're doing in one session is actually quite low because the majority of the session you're resting at, as a powerlifter because you take your whatever it is 5 to 7 to 10 minutes rest, just depending on how you feel. But I don't really prescribe taking a rest longer than that because it's not really realistic as opposed to if you're in like for example a 10 to 14 person flight at the competition, you're not going to be resting any longer than that. So to me, logically, it doesn't make much sense to do a rest period longer than what is prescribed, generally 5 to 10 minutes. And again, especially for deadlifts, the flight goes by quicker, so the lifter won't use their allotted 60 seconds of time. So generally, it's less than a minute when you're dealing with deadlifts. But granted, squat and bench, people usually take up the majority of their time when they're setting up for that and actually doing the lift. So here's some deadlifts. I just felt out for 515, and again they were fine. Naturally can be a little harder than usual because I'm just coming back from the first week after the meet, and again I did start training the day after the competition, so your body's not too accustomed to going straight into all this volume and whatnot. So the day after, which is today, which is the day I'm recording, when I went for the squat daily maxes, they were rough because my back, I was deadlifting around until 11 p.m. the prior night, and I had an appointment at a restaurant, in the early evening, so I had to kind of rush through this, but I wouldn't have been able to do much anyways because my back was pretty spent. But again, I just did that kind of messy 365 as the daily max for that day. And again, finishing off with the bench here is just 205 for a set of 4. Doing so many days consecutively for bench, it kind of also drains on you, but you just have to, well, for myself, I just adjust it on the fly. So thanks for watching, and see you guys next week.